Forget everything you thought you knew about hypnosis. Hypnotherapy is actually one of the most effective techniques for getting lasting results, lasting change, and really, really rapid relief. And I'm not just saying that because I'm a hypnotherapist, but I've actually experienced it myself. Hey everybody, my name is Chelsea. I'm an intuitive hypnotherapist, and I help people free their minds from the past so that they can create the future they're worthy of. Why is hypnotherapy so effective? I know that there's a lot of hype around quitting smoking or quitting certain habits, but I really love using it for releasing trauma. And I really love using it for releasing anxiety. All those little things, all those little self-sabotaging patterns, all those little anxieties that keep popping up without really us consciously thinking about it. This is a really great technique to use, and it's why I incorporated it into my practice. Starting with why traditional therapy doesn't work. Traditional talk therapy. Now there are some good, CBT, and there's some other really, useful techniques. And I know that there are a lot of well-meaning therapists out there. As a healer, it is my job to help you not need me as quickly as possible. It's not my job to build a clientele. My job is to help you not need me. So when we just talk about something, it can feel really cathartic. My friend the other day and I were talking about this, and she said, therapy is kind of like the new trend. Everyone has a therapist. And I said, therapy has become the new salon. People will often go into therapy and just go to talk about their problem, but they're not really solving it. And they go week after week and they pay, hundreds of dollars, thousands of dollars to go and just talk about the problem. But here's the thing. If that is all your therapist is encouraging you to do and not actually guiding you towards any other action or guiding you towards any other shifts, they're not serving you. And I know they're well-meaning, but that particular type of therapy is not serving you. Because what happens when we just talk about our problem, okay, let's talk about what made you anxious this week, or let's talk about why you might have been anxious in the past. Two things are happening. One, you're relying on your conscious knowledge of what you think might have happened. Now, there are some things that we might have forgotten. There's some things, but let me tell you, the unconscious mind is like the biggest storage unit you can imagine. And there is stuff buried in there that not a lot of us can consciously access. It takes work. It takes time. So I can understand, again, why you need to see someone for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks trying to get through to that little nugget of truth. The second reason is because when we talk about the issue, our brain becomes plastic. All the neurons, all the little neural pathways start lighting up and fizzing, and they start looking for associations. And our body and our minds will physically regress to that point in time that we're talking about, if the emotion is strong enough. So the brain can stay plastic for up to 2 hours. And in that 2 hours, if those neural pathways are not reprogrammed, if there are not other associations offered to help calm and reprogram those neurons, then what happens is 50 minutes are up, your brain is still fizzing, and the well-meaning therapist will say, okay, well, here's a couple of coping mechanisms, and I'll see you next week. Well, your brain is still lit up. You're still in that anxious state. Then you get in the car, and what might have been anxiety about going to see your family at the holidays then turns into anxiety driving, or then turns into anxiety going to work because your brain's looking for all these reasons why you might be anxious. Oh, must be because I'm driving. Which is really very sweet of your brain trying to keep you safe, but it's not exactly helpful. So that's one reason that hypnotherapy is so effective, is because within the session, you're reprogramming those neural pathways. You're actually soothing and shutting down that activity once you've achieved the shift that you need, so that your mind isn't going out and making all these other associations. Your mind is calmed back down. Your mind is kind of, everything's been wrapped up with a neat little bow. So that's one reason. Another reason is, like I was saying, there's suggestions being offered while your brain is in that plastic state. So you are actually reprogramming different ideas, different truths into the mind. And if they resonate with you, your mind will accept those as a truth. And it is incredibly powerful what your unconscious mind can do when it has a new story to believe. And that will subtly affect all of your actions in that area going forward because you have a new truth, right? So it's fascinating how subtle the results can be, but how immediate they can be, even if it is just that you are more calm and those things that used to bug you don't bug you as much anymore because you have a new story about them, right? So that's reason number 2. Reason number 3, going back to talking about the problem and relying on what we know consciously. I touched on it a little bit before, but I want to go back and really dive deep into it. We don't always know consciously what the problem is. If we did, we wouldn't need therapy in the first place. We wouldn't need, all these other self-help books. We wouldn't need all these other mechanisms because we'd know what's wrong. We would know that, that was in the past. We're safe now. And we'd be able to move on. However, that's not always the case. Sometimes it's something really subtle, but really powerful that the unconscious has stored in an effort to keep our mind safe, because your mind's not going to try to break itself. So what the unconscious does is it says, okay, let me take this traumatic moment. I'm going to store it here for you until you're ready to deal with it. And then what happens is that very helpful unconscious mind of yours is going to start guiding you towards different scenarios that might uncover that little nugget of truth that it's buried for you. It's a really fascinating thing, but when people get a breakthrough, it's because they see that little nugget of truth that has been guiding all these little unconscious decisions and all these patterns throughout their life. So the way that hypnosis works is it takes that conscious mind out of the way, removes all that conscious chatter of what I think it is, and it must be this and it should be that. Well, I guess it was this back when I was 8, but I didn't think it had that much effect on me, but hey, I guess it did. It takes all that away so that your unconscious mind can communicate with you directly. I have abandonment issues because I got lost in a grocery store for 5 minutes. It can be something as simple as that, and you'd be surprised how many times it is. That, however, though, if you think about it, can be a very traumatic moment, depending on your age, depending on your perspective, depending on your attachment to your parents at the time. Oh, to think that your parents have left you alone in public, defenseless, and where anybody could just pick you up and steal you. Maybe that's something they told you, is that somebody could pick you up and steal you. That was what my mom told me. But I've worked with a lot of clients that have had something simple like that. So trauma is relative. The things that we don't really categorize as trauma might still be interpreted as trauma by a brain that is not fully developed, or by a brain that is already in an agitated state. Maybe that child was already not feeling their most stable, and that was just the last thing that locked something in, and now they fear abandonment. And that's okay. But we wouldn't know that. We would hardly even remember that until we get into a state where we can access the unconscious mind. So the unconscious mind and hypnosis can allow people to get to the real root of the issue. And I use this punchline all the time, but I'm gonna keep using it. I'm from the Blade generation of vampires, and when you kill the original vampire, all the others die off. It's the same with healing trauma. If you heal the original root of the anxiety, if you heal the original root of the self-sabotaging patterns, all the other patterns start dying away because they're not necessary to protect you anymore, because you've healed that little underlying factor. So if you found this informative, if you found this helpful, if you found this interesting and intriguing, please share this video, like it, subscribe. I would love to see what your thoughts are. And as always, happy healing.